Imagine a new kind of investing, a potentially life-changing way to invest that honors biblical principles, the kind of principles that you and I grew up with. Since 1994, Timothy Plan has made biblically responsible investing possible, offering mutual funds and ETFs that are filtered for biblical principles. Don't compromise your values. Invest with Timothy Plan. Ask your financial advisor or call Timothy Plan at 1-800-TIM-PLAN. Again, that's 1-800-846-7526 and discover what it means to be a biblically responsible investor. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing. Mutual funds distributed by Timothy Partners Ltd. and ETFs distributed by Foresight Fund Services LLC. As a paid testimonial, there is no guarantee of future performance and each experience will differ. Well, hello again. Welcome to another edition of the MemoPod. I always forget. This is the second one I've done. And I say I always forget. But I'm looking at the screen. I'm looking at myself, thinking I'm looking, and I'm not looking at you because I'm not looking at the camera. I've got to remember to look at the green light, the camera, so it looks like I'm looking at you. I get so mesmerized with myself that it totally throws things off. Hey, so listen, I appreciate the feedback that came in after last week's MemoPod, the inaugural MemoPod, if you will. Sorry, I'm going to silence my phone. It is right now, just so you know, I'm recording this at midnight. So this is actually, it's actually 12:01. This is actually the day that I'm posting it, I'm recording it. It is that close to being live. That is crazy time. Never been that close to being live with any of these podcasts, and so you should feel privileged. Situation is that it's graduation week at the high school where I teach, and so tonight was honors night, and I hadn't eaten supper, and so when I finally got home after honors night, you don't care, but I'm going to tell you anyway, I had to go and stuff the diplomas and put the stickers on for the right diploma types. Then I had to print all the programs for the graduation. Me and another lady, colleague, were the graduation coordinators. So, I mean, she was helping too. But anyway, when I got that done and I got home, it was, I was hungry. So we went to our neighborhood bar and grill, Applebee's, and had some half-priced appetizers, which I believe are going to start rumbling here before too long and cut the MemoPod short. So why am I wasting time? Anyway, so I appreciate the feedback that came in. One of the things that was a response from some folks is that there were some random loud noises that were very disruptive. And I heard them too, because I listened back to a portion of it just to make sure I was checking audio levels and all that stuff, since I'm kind of on my own out here. And I noticed it too. And I think what it was the crinkling of the paper, but I think it's when the paper was sitting on the desk. And it was when I grabbed it, because then it rumbled the microphone. So I'm going to try it this week. You need to let me know if you get any of that kind of nonsense again. And then we'll troubleshoot. We'll find it. Like I said, we'll get better at this as time goes on. Second thing that was a response, the only other thing that I want to respond to, I don't remember who it was. I'd written it down so I didn't forget to address you directly. People taking shots at the heck hole out here. They said it looked like a terrarium. What in the world? No. This is like the Rainforest Cafe is what it is. And here's what I came to the conclusion of. Came to the conclusion that we mock what we do not understand. And so I want to give you, and again, if you're listening to the podcast only, the MemoPod only, you're not going to be able to see this. And I'm not going to do this every week, but I want to take the time to show you what I did in here, because this was a labor of love for me. Okay. What I wanted was a place that I could go and escape from the noise of life, and I wanted it to be isolated. Now listen, even out here in the country in rural Indiana, you'll get, there's a bypass that's not too far from where we are, so you hear some of that traffic. And you got neighborhood dogs that'll bark, or when the kids are out playing, you'll hear them yipping and yapping and all of that stuff. The swing set that I made for the kids is not that far from here. You like how I just kind of threw that in there, that I made it for them? Yeah, it's probably going to collapse at about any time now. Jenny's very uneasy with the kids being on that thing. I think it's fine. But anyway, and so I wanted someplace that I could go. Now, I soundproof this thing. I put up acoustic tiles. I put up the, what's it called? This is bad. The drywall. Yeah, I put up drywall in this thing, and then the acoustic pads, painted this, and then put up the greenery. The greenery is part a sound absorption, clearly, but also I wanted to be able to escape to the rainforest. So I'm not going to play the rainforest sounds because it largely relies on my computer, which I'm now using. But what I'm going to do here, real quickly, I want you to get the full effect of what this is, because I'm going to assume that I was mocked by people who do not understand everything that I've got going on in here. And so I'm going to turn this off, okay? See, I'm killing the lights in here. You notice that? I'm killing the lights. And I'm going to plug this in over here, so you're going to get the full effect. I'm going to kill this light. And then last week I told you that I had this guy, and it wasn't working. But now it is. Okay, I don't want that. There we go. All right, so I got that going. And then I'm turning this off. And then I got one more thing here to turn on. There we go. All right, now. Okay, so I'm going to turn this up. Like, can you see this? This is what's going on in the... Yeah, and you see the blue lights going up there? Can you see the blue lights? Here, I'm going to turn this thing off even. Yeah. So now, you come out here and you turn on the rainforest sounds. It's magnificent. And by the way, this has different settings. I can go to... well, I say it's got different settings. It looks like it's all the same setting. There we go. Like the slow firefly approach. Right. So, all right. I'm going to go ahead and turn all this off now. So that was that. Like, I'm not going to be mocked for this, you know? I don't know who it was. I'll have to go back and look. Oh, I got to plug it in to be able to see. I can't see what's going on. This is effective, isn't it? So again, that was the quick tour of the heck hole, which, by the way, the mini split that we installed back here behind me. Whoa, that is way too bright. Let's cycle through those. That's much better. The mini split back here works so well that I set it at 80 degrees and it's about 58 in here. So the heck hole is going to be renamed. It's going to be the ice cube. But anyway, all right, so let's get to this. This is for all of you who have taken the time to tune in. I just wanted you to see what this place was like in all its glory. So, because I had given it was for folks at Not the Bee. When I started doing the podcast at Not the Bee, when I made this thing, I had shown some pictures on the social page there at Not the Bee. But none of you have ever been privy to what's going on here. And now you're part of the family. Now you're part of the family. And by the way, if you saw this thing from the outside, it's like one of those Amish-made sheds that you buy. It's an 8x... Is this 8x8? I don't think so. I think it's like 8x6 or something like that. It's small. And it's perfect. And the couch back there. Where I do all my great thinking. Yeah. All right. Let's get to this, shall we? I worked several years ago I've always worked at the high school where I teach, but I've had other side jobs. Before I started writing for Not the Bee, I wrote for The Resurgent and Eric Erickson. Before that, I was struggling and was just taking freelance jobs where I could find them. And I worked for, I was the freelance opinion columnist, which you get paid for every column that they publish at the Indy Star, which is a Gannett Media owned paper. Okay, Gannett owns a lot of them. Now their big daddy is the USA Today. And something happened over at the USA Today that drew my attention. I'll set this up by saying when I wrote for the Gannett paper, when I wrote for the Indy Star, my editor was moderately conservative. And he was very good to me. I'll always say that because I was in my estimation, the lone conservative voice. There was a conservative cartoonist, editorial cartoonist, and some of you may even know him, Gary Varvel. And he would do cartoons that were conservative, and I would write a conservative column, and they'd be published maybe once a week. But everybody else on staff that was like actually getting a paycheck, from the opinion page to the sports page to the news page, not conservative. And it became very obvious to me, I always nursed this sense of guilt, that they chose me to be their conservative voice, number one, so they only had to publish me maybe once a week, maybe once every couple weeks, because I was just freelance. But they could point to me and say, no, we allow conservative voices. But they also picked me because I'm just this schmo from Kokomo, Indiana, that is a high school teacher. I'm not a professional journalist, so there's all of these great conservative writers that they pass on because they'd be too good at expressing a conservative viewpoint. They just had this doofus from Kokomo write. I always nursed that sense of guilt that I was the patsy that they were using. But nonetheless, I wrote for them, and it was very obvious. Gannett, when they came to take over the Indy Star, they had a very pronounced, very obvious progressive agenda that they were wanting to promote, that was the point of their paper, whether in the news pages, the sports pages, or the opinion pages, that was to be carried forward. And anybody that was going to be employed by them, they needed to hold the same opinions, or at least not get in the way of that agenda. And if they did, and like I mentioned, my editor, Tim Swearens was his name, and I feel like he was too conservative for them. I felt like Tim oftentimes would capitulate to non-conservative ideas, maybe under pressure. Still didn't do him any good. They moved on from him, and they brought in somebody who was a left-wing diversity hire, and the diversity, equity, inclusion before DEI became a thing is what happened there. So with that kind of corporate reputation, I can't say I'm ever surprised when Gannett or Gannett-owned paper, publication, when it has authors that are seemingly way off the rails. And that's what I noticed. I'm looking at this. Gannett they have dispatched two of their female writers, two of their female columnists at USA Today, to push an anti-woman agenda. Now, I don't know. It is possible that these two women, that they really believe what they're saying. I think after having worked at a Gannett-owned paper, I actually think it's possible that these ladies understand they need to do this in order to keep their positions. And so, if that's the case, if they don't really believe what they're saying, but they are advancing this anti-woman agenda, I mean, how awful is that for Gannett? Well, we can't have white men voice this idea that transgender athletes, that men who are masquerading as women, or maybe even truly believe themselves to be women, but they're still men, that they should be able to compete in female sports. We can't have a man write those columns, and we can't have a man make those statements. No, instead, we need our women columnists to do that. And so, is the pressure applied, and these people are forced into doing that? You have other high-profile females, whether they're former athletes. Riley Gaines is the swimmer that comes to mind, who is out there at the forefront of this battle on behalf of women. And then you've got a lady over at ESPN. Yes, ESPN. which is MSESPN, according to some people. And they're not far off. ESPN is full of left-wingers. But Samantha Ponder, she married, I think he's a former NFL quarterback, Christian Ponder. I know he played for the Vikings. I don't think he's still in the league. But anyway, Sam Ponder, she's out there risking her career at ESPN to stand up for women in the face of the patriarchy here, the cross-dressing patriarchy. Yeah, she's risking her job. And then, as she's out doing that, you have these Gannett ladies. One of them's name is Nancy Armour, but I think it's Armour. And then Lindsay Schnell is the other one. So here you are, Sam Ponder, you are risking your job to go out and defend the integrity of women's sports. And you start taking on what should be friendly fire. Shouldn't be friendly fire, but they should be friendly sources. Other female sports columnists at the USA Today. Armour is advancing the idea that men who wear women's clothing, who put on woman face, men who wear woman face, that they should be allowed. They should be allowed to participate in female sporting competitions. That's the position that she's taking. I think that's crazy. Okay, I think it's a terrible idea. I think it's an insult to women. However, I also will discuss it with somebody. I'm more than happy to have the conversation. And so it's not that I don't think, if Nancy really believes this, if Nancy Armour or anybody really believes that males should be able to participate, biological males should be able to participate, okay. Then voice that and we can discuss it. I mean, imagine if Armour would have sat down and actually written a piece to explain why she thinks that males, that's what it is, a male athlete, which we know, sorry, the ding there. Did you hear the ding? It sounded like dinner's done. Anyway, we know that the male physiology, this isn't any secret, that males have longer bones, that they have greater bone density, that their ligaments are not as lax, and therefore they're not as subject to serious career injuries for large exertions and things of that nature. We know that there is fuller muscular structure with men. And there's one other one that I wrote here. Oh yeah, this was crazy. This had never dawned on me. And as I was doing research, thinking about all of this, that males have a higher ratio of muscle mass to body weight. Okay, and you got to think about that for a minute. But they have a higher ratio of muscle mass to body weight. So as the body weight increases, the muscle mass, the ratio is going to be greater for men than it will be for women. So if Armour wants to write a piece to explain why those people that have all of that, regardless of the face that they put on, they have the greater bone density, they have the longer bones, they have a fuller muscular structure, they have all of those things, a stronger physique, all of those things, why she doesn't think that that is an inherent competitive advantage against female athletes, I'm willing to listen. I think she should write a piece to explain that. But instead, she doesn't do that. Instead, she lazily resorts to petty name-calling and pejorative attacks on other female sports writers. Here's what she wrote. This is what she wrote. I'm just going to read this. If ESPN's Sam Ponder was truly concerned about women's sports, she's had ample opportunity in the last year to call out the inequities that actually do exist. She hasn't. This isn't about fairness. It's about her bigotry. Okay, first of all, man, we got to be better than this. Just as people, we've got to be better than this. Does Nancy Armour have any proof that Sam Ponder is a bigot? Or is the totality of her evidence simply that an ESPN personality believes that it is unfair that in the name of politics, because that's what's driving all of this, that those that have a male physiology are suddenly, this wasn't going on a decade ago, that those people are suddenly to be invited to participate in female sports with those with a female physiology. Is that right there enough to constitute bigotry? Because if that's the case, if that is the evidence that Sam Ponder is a bigot, because she believes that someone with a male physiology should not be invited to come and participate in a sporting event that is made for people with female physiologies, if that is evidence of bigotry, then well over half of the country are bigots. And Nancy needs to acknowledge that that's what she's saying. And I would add to that an even greater percentage of citizens of the world. Go to progressive Europe, and you're going to see the exact same. You're going to see an even greater percentage of people opposed to that kind of thing. So I read this article that she wrote. I was looking for some kind of moral justification for this aggressive insult of Sam Ponder. And this is what I found. This is what she wrote. To me, this was her smoking gun. Did Sam Ponder publicly participate in any of the many excellent documentaries, video, and commentary ESPN did to commemorate the 50th anniversary of Title IX last year? Or even tweet about them? No, she did not. Okay, this is irony. In case you're missing it, Armour is citing Title IX. Well, Sam Ponder wasn't promoting the Title IX stuff that ESPN pushed last year. If she really cared about female sports, she'd have been talking about Title IX. Wait a minute. Why was Title IX enacted? Title IX was enacted due to the very distinctions between male and female athletes, the very thing that Ponder is now defending. You do get this, right? Males that are claiming transgender status so that they can participate in female athletics, that undermines Title IX. The legitimacy of Title IX, it's an attack on that, and yet Armour suggests that if you oppose that attack on Title IX, you're a bigot. How do you follow that? Now, again, I mentioned she's not alone. USA Today's Enterprise reporter. She's actually from Sports Illustrated. She's a Sports Illustrated alum. Her name is Lindsay Schnell. Here's what she said. Quoting Nancy Armour's article, she says, and I quote, "Every time I hear someone say trans women competing in sports isn't fair, I think of these wise words from some other Twitter user, Laishiak. These are the wise words. Quote, is LeBron fair? It's sports. Nothing is fair. Which is to say, this is a really dumb argument. Schnell is saying it's a really dumb argument to say that trans women are men, that men competing against women in sports isn't fair. That's a really dumb argument, she says. Because after all, LeBron is so much better than other players, so it's sports, nothing's fair. Okay, I'm hoping and thinking that Schnell probably is just defending a colleague and she hasn't thought through what it is that she's actually saying, because the implications, she has managed to undercut the entire justification for female athletics. You get that, right? If nothing is fair in sports, then we ought to just get over it. Right? In other words, there should be no LPGA tour. Women who play golf should have to try to compete with the men to get on the men's tour. Because after all, it's sports, nothing's fair, right? That's what I'm told. There should be no WNBA. All of those WNBA players, they ought to have to compete and try to make the team of an NBA team. It's not fair? What do you mean? It's sports. Nothing is fair. And ditto that with women's soccer, women's tennis, women's track and field. There should be none of that. Well, that's not fair, Peter, because then the women have to run against men who have... Whoa. It's sports. Nothing is fair. And while we're at it, let's go back into high school and let's start letting boys try out to play softball, be on the softball team, be on the girls' swim team. I mean, that's happening at the collegiate level. Because after all, let's make the next generation of Florence Griffith Joyner, you remember her, FloJo? Let's make the next generation of FloJos have to, in order to ever be on the medal stand, compete against Usain Bolts. The next generation of those. Sports. Nothing's fair. Okay, this isn't good thinking. It's what typifies this movement right now, but we have to be able, this is ideologically driven propaganda, and in a previous era, it would be regarded as misogynistic. It would be regarded as sexist. I applaud people like Riley Gaines and Sam Ponder for standing up, even in the face of callous insults from fellow women who should know better, and I guess in my heart, I think that they probably do, but they're towing the line to please their corporate masters at Gannett, or because that's what their political tribe is saying we have to do right now. I don't want to be beholden to any political tribe that strongly that I have to turn against common sense and my own co-laborers in the cause of women's athletics. But that's where they are at USA Today. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but again, having written for Gannett before, I'm not. All right, so this is where I have to say goodbye. Got to say goodbye to those of you who are our free subscribers. Those of you who are paid subscribers, by the way, I would love for you to make that transition, because in the next segment for the paid subscribers, it's been intimated that because of something that I wrote recently, I may have a problem with ageism, being discriminatory, being hostile towards those who are elderly. Okay? I want to talk about that and just pose the question. Here's what I think. Is this now regarded as ageism? We'll get into that, as well as a couple other things that I think you'll find interesting. We'll do that after this break. And for the rest of you, free subscribers, thanks for tuning in to the beginning. Would love to have you sign up to up it to a paid subscription and just continue to help us grow this ministry. We would love to have you at any time. You can do it. Just go to peterheck.com, put your name in there, and you can upgrade. And would love to have you part of our community here that we're building. But for the rest of you, I'll see you next week. Paid subscribers, hang tight.
The Memo with Peter Heck.
Please patronize and thank all the sponsors of the Heck podcast, including McGonagall's Buick GMC, Terrell's Auto Service, Norris Insurance, Stevens Machine, Creative Financial Center, Indiana Right to Life, Tri-Green Tractor, the Indiana Family Institute, Hartman Family Farms, Liberty Financial Group, the Wyman Group, and J. Watson Creations.